Hello everyone, welcome to the first video on my channel. My name is Silver, and today I'll be showing you guys my July 2022 Trickstar deck profile. Let's go ahead and hop right into it. Alright, starting off with the monsters, I run 3 copies of Trickstar Cantina. This card is the main searcher of the deck. When you normal summon it, you're allowed to search for any Trickstar card in your deck. And then also it has a secondary effect that if your opponent activates a spell or trap card, you can inflict 200 points of damage to them directly. Moving on, next we have Trickstar Licorice. This card has an effect that allows you to reveal this card in your hands, target one other Trickstar monster you control besides the Trickstar Licorice. Special summon this card, then return the other card back to hand. So this will allow you to recycle your Cantina. And then we also run 1 copy of Trickstar Corbane. This card is pretty much an honest for the deck, where you can discard it during the damage calculation and double your Trickstar monster's attack points. And then to wrap it up, for the Trickstar monsters, I run the 1 copy of Trickstar Lilybell. This card has an effect that says that if you add it to your hand, except by drawing it, you can immediately special summon it to your side of the field, and this card can attack directly. It also has a really important effect where if you deal damage to your opponent's life points, you can add 1 Trickstar monster from your graveyard to your hand. So that's it for the Trickstar monsters in the main deck. Alright, so moving on to the hand traps, we run 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Droll Knockbird, 3 copies of Effect Veiler, 3 copies of Lord of the Heavenly Prison. This card, for those who don't know what this does, you can reveal this card until the end of your opponent's turn, and then it protects all set cards, whether that be spell, trap, or monster. And then if either player were to activate a set spell or trap, you can special summon this card from your hands, and then you can set any spell or trap directly from your deck to your side of the field. However, that card is banished during the end phase of the next turn. And then to finish off the hand traps, I do run, of course, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. So moving on to the spell cards, I run, of course, 2 copies of Trickstar Light Stage. I cannot wait for this card to come back to 3. Then I run, no shocker here, 3 copies of Mystic Mine. And then I also run 1 copy of Necro Valley. Necro Valley is actually really helpful to kind of slow down the opponent's decks, but it's also a really good target for set rotation. Set rotation, usually you can set Necro Valley to your opponent's side of the field, set your own Trickstar Light Stage. You can activate Light Stage, or of course you can set Mystic Mine if you need, but what I like to do if I need the extra consistency, I set my own Light Stage to my side of the field, Necro Valley to my opponent's, activate Light Stage, get my search, activate its secondary ability, which you can target any set spell or trap card on your opponent's side of the field, and they cannot activate it for the rest of the turn, and then destroy it during the end phase. However, they have to activate it in the end phase, and if they can't, it's destroyed. Another really good thing about Trickstar Light Stage is if any Trickstar monster were to deal damage to your opponent, whether that be battle or by their own card effects to burn, then you can deal 200 extra damage to your opponent, which is actually really helpful. I also do run 1 Terraforming and then Metaverse. This is to facilitate, of course, all of the field spells. And that's actually it for the spell cards. I don't really run any others. If I had the money for Pot of Prosperity, I'd probably run it. However, I feel like this deck is actually really good on its own without the Prosperity. It really depends on if you have the money to afford it and if you can find a way to fit it in. I would highly suggest you doing so. Moving on to the traps, you have to run 3 copies of Trickstar Reincarnation. For those who don't know what this card does, it banishes your opponent's hand, then they draw the same number. And then, however, there is a really cool interaction. I will go over that in a second. But it also has a secondary effect where you can banish it from the graveyard, and then you can special summon any Trickstar monster from your graveyard. So it's a trap card monster reborn from the graveyard that you can use on your turn or your opponent's turn, which is actually really helpful. Moving on, we do run 3 copies of Summon Limit to slow down the opponent even more. And then I do also run 2 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison to wrap up the trap cards. I don't see many people running these anymore. I still find them useful, especially for stuff like Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. You can usually find a way to out that with it. With the branded decks running around, they can you can just use one of their dragons and then get rid of their Mirror Jade. So I find that really helpful. Moving on, I'm going to go ahead and do the side deck, so that way the extra deck makes a bit more sense. Alright, so to start off the side deck, I do run 3 copies of Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. This card is so slept on this format. For those who don't know what it does, it is a hand trap that says if your opponent controls more monsters than you, you can discard this card, reveal any monster in your extra deck, look at your opponent's extra deck, so that means you can actually get knowledge on what they're playing, like what other cards they're running in their extra deck, but it actually banishes all cards with the same name as the revealed monster, which is actually really good, especially against some of the decks right now. Of course, I also do run 3 copies of Nibiru for going second. I run 2 copies of Twin Twister to help against back row decks. I also run Zombie World. Zombie World, I usually side this in with by swapping out the Necro Valley. This card completely stops Flunder, and it actually also really hurts Tri Brigade. Continuing on, I of course run 3 copies of D-Barrier. And then to wrap it off, I run 3 copies of Evenly Matched. So that's it for the side deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at the extra deck. So starting off with the extra deck, I do run 1 copy of Trickstar Holy Angel. You don't really need to run this card. I do find this useful. But if you want to run more Ghost Reaper's Cherry, like Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherry targets, then you can remove that or whatever. This really depends on how your local scene or what you think you're going to be facing off against higher levels of play. However, I also do run 1 Monk of the Tenier to help against Sword Soul. I run Halki Fibrax to get rid of like the Synchro pile decks, or just any deck that really needs like the Halki Fibrax to continue their play. I do run 1 Ferrigite and 1 Fractal because, especially nowadays, I feel like Tri Brigade isn't seeing as much play. However, you do have to respect the deck. So, and then moving on, I my locals, I have faced off against a couple DDD players. So I do run the DDD Abyss King Gilgamesh, just to kind of help against their decks. Then to wrap off the links, I do run the Apollosa and Access Code Talker to kind of stop my opponent from getting to a really good end board, if possible. And then moving on to Xyz monsters, I run Totally Awesome, mainly for Marincess and the new sprites. Then I run 1 Cyber Dragon Nova because I've noticed that Cyber Dragon Therion is actually really picking up steam, so I want to be able to combat that. Also, ABC Therion is a deck. Then I also do run Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder just to wrap off for the Xyz monsters. I only run 1 Synchro monster, that is Virtual World QB Shinshin. Of course, this is just mainly to hit Virtual World. However, I've seen decks that run Tinny Virtual World, and this would really hurt their deck as well. So to finish off the extra deck, I do run the 1 Intis, Invoked Mechaba, and then, of course, the All-Star VIP of this, Mirror Jade. This format, so many branded decks are running around. If you can get them to summon out their dragon, and then stop their Mirror Jade, what else are they going to really do at that point? And going back to what I was saying earlier, there is a trick that if you run, if you can get 2 copies of Reincarnation into your hand and a Drone Lockbird, you can actually lock your opponent out of being able to have any opening, like their opening hands, and that allows you a free turn where they can't do anything with no cards. So, well, I guess the main weakness to this is like Flunderies, but even then, like, we have stuff for Flunder. So what you want to do is you want to start off, of course, by setting to Reincarnation, and then you can also do this with one. However, it would require your opponent to activate a card that allows them to search. And then what you do is, however, for the main part, you're going to go into the standby phase. You're going to Reincarnation. Once this resolves, they're going to banish their entire hand, then draw the same number. And then you chain Reincarnation, chain Droll and Lockbird. By sending Droll and Lockbird to the graveyard, your opponent can no longer add cards to their hand. They still must banish for Reincarnation. So that means they're going to banish their hand. You're going to practically rip like 10 cards out of their deck. And you can actually use the Reincarnations to summon back your Trickstar monsters as well to push for extra damage in later turns. Yeah, so that's it for really the cheese part of the deck. Again, same thing for like if your opponent searches a card, you just want to chain this on resolution and then chain Droll and Lockbird to the Reincarnation to lock your opponent out of having a hand. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment if you like the deck profile, and let me know what y'all want to see next. Alright, have a good one, guys. Bye.